Hi, peace lovers, and welcome back. I'm Avis Kalfsbeck, and this is the Pieces Here podcast. We are currently in a fiction series here on the podcast titled Experiment Zero of the Peace Experiments. This is a 13-episode series following the reports of Kitty O'Compost, a small-town journalist with a sharp wit and a truth-telling goat named Marzipan. In this story, Kitty untangles the mystery of a global peace protocol through the lens of a local pothole, proving that the big questions of the world are usually hidden in the small things we walk over every day. It's a journey about the commons, the power of young people, and the quiet maintenance of peace. If you found us in the middle of this series, feel free to pop back to episode 184 to start the story from the beginning. In this chapter, Kitty discovers that a pothole can draw global attention and that the real danger isn't the crack in the road, but the widening gap between what's happening and what we're allowed to say about it. Here is Chapter 3, Scratch Fact Check, The Global Pothole. By the time morning light reached my kitchen, my inbox had already acquired a nervous system. I stood by the counter and took my census of the self. Kitty O'Compost equipped as follows. Boots with dried mud now cracked into small maps, showing exactly where I'd been and how hard I'd listened. A soft green dress under a cardigan, the kind with elbows worn smoother by thinking than by weather. A messenger bag containing a notebook, a camera, a crumpled meeting agenda, and a photocopied map folded into an origami of suspicion. One slightly stale cookie for breakfast, backup or a bribe for the support staff, and Marzipan, her tail twitching and her ears angled toward my phone like she could hear the digital surveillance. Inventory complete. I checked my email. The first message came from an address so bland it was suspicious. Notifications at regional-infrastructure-partners.info. Dear Ms. O'Compost, we appreciate your recent coverage of local infrastructure conditions. Please be advised that public references to secured facilities may result in inadvertent metadata exposure related to critical systems. We respectfully request that you refrain from posting additional specific observations that could be misinterpreted by external actors. Thank you for your understanding and cooperation. No threat, no signature, just that phrase, inadvertent metadata exposure. Addie, I murmured toward the ceiling, if that's not a friendly way of saying we're watching you, I'll eat my boots. Marzipan scraped her hoof across the linoleum hard enough to squeal. High-level scratch fact check. Deception confirmed. I forwarded the email to a folder labeled Oddities and walked to the beacon. The Midway Beacon's office consisted of 3 desks, 1 agent printer, and a plant that kept surviving budget cuts. I dropped my bag, offered the plant a sympathetic nod, and woke up my computer. The pothole story, Doris the Pothole in the Canyon of County Road 12, had never been meant for anything but local grumbling and a few social media shares. I clicked on the analytics dashboard out of habit. The numbers did not look local. 200 views from addresses I didn't recognize, referrals from domains nnn.mil.int.eu, click-throughs from something called Global Situational Monitoring, internal. Well, I said out loud, Doris has fans in high places. The cursor froze. The page refreshed itself without my consent. I blinked and the message vanished. The article reappeared as if nothing had happened. Like a bad dream, the anti-commons wanted us all to forget. Marzipan, who had wandered in behind me, planted both front hooves on the floor and scraped so violently that the printer woke up and spit out a blank page in protest. I opened the story editor to see what exactly was triggering global attention. 3 paragraphs about a pothole. 1 sentence at the bottom. Unusual security observed today at the new logistics facility. More to follow. That was it. That was the global pothole, the tiny gap in the official story that the anti-commons had decided to pave over with polite digital warnings. My phone buzzed again. This time the message came from Compliance and Outreach Critical Infrastructure Desk. It somehow managed to sound both warm and refrigerated. Dear Ms. Ocampost, we noted your recent reference to a secured regional facility. While we fully support local journalism, we encourage community partners to avoid unauthorized infrastructural inquiry that could contribute to misalignment between public narratives and verified information. If you have questions, we would be happy to schedule a brief informational call. Sincerely, Regional Harmonization Liaison. Unauthorized infrastructural inquiry? I repeated, turning to Marzipan. They've turned basic reporting into a misdemeanor, haven't they? Marzipan hopped up with her front hooves on my knee, her eyes wide and her ears pinned. She scratched at my boot like she was trying to erase the word liaison from the universe. I stroked her nose. All right, I get it. You don't like the smell of this kind of harmonization. I opened a new browser tab to do what I always did when bureaucracy invented a new phrase. Looked it up. An academic article popped up about the tragedy of the anti-commons, a term I'd vaguely heard in a podcast once. Anti-commons, a situation in which multiple owners have rights to exclude others from a resource, leading to underuse or blockage of that resource. I underlined the key point in my notes. Anti-commons equals too many gates, not enough access. Peace itself treated like restricted property. I felt a genuine spike of anger. They are the anti-commons. Another email arrived while I was still typing. The subject was courtesy notice. We observed increased external attention to your recent article. Please be advised that certain analytic tools automatically flag references to coordinated response infrastructure. As a courtesy, we recommend you refrain from speculative language that could escalate interest from non-aligned observers. Non-aligned observers? Like who? Readers? The printer, offended by the ambient hypocrisy, jammed halfway through a page. Marzipan climbed onto the chair beside it and delivered a decisive professional headbutt to the side panel. The jam cleared instantly. Support staff, I told her, unionized and effective. I drafted a reply I had no intention of sending. Dear Regional Harmonization Liaison, thank you for your concern about my inadvertent metadata. I share your worries about misalignment between public narratives and verified information. Please send the verified information. Warmly, Kitty. I closed the draft without saving it. Instead, I pulled out my notebook and drew 2 columns. Column A. What I actually wrote was simple. Pothole, Doris, County Road 12, and unusual security at the logistics hub. Column B, what they're afraid of was complex. Secured regional facility, coordinated response infrastructure, external actors, and non-aligned observers. There was a gap between the 2 columns that could swallow a small town. I labeled it Global Pothole, the hole between what is happening and what we are allowed to say about it. Marzipan scratched once at column B, then twice at the gap. No scratches on column A. That's what I thought, I said. The problem isn't the crack in the road, it's the crack in the story. The Beacon's editor, Tom, wandered in carrying a coffee that looked like it had fought him on the way out of the pot. You poking the hub again? He asked, lightly tapping. He nodded toward my screen. IT says we had a brief blip this morning. Automated traffic spike. Our little beacon got scraped by something very large and very bored. Anything we need to do differently? Tom shrugged. Just don't bring down the internet from inside this building. We can't afford a new router. He shuffled to his desk. The plant continued its stoic photosynthesis. I closed my laptop and switched to the notebook. Computers can be copied, scanned, and monitored. Goats, less so. On a fresh page, I wrote, Scratch Fact Check Log 933. Email 1. Inadvertent metadata exposure. Goat scratch, strong. Email 2. Unauthorized infrastructural inquiry. Goat scratch, stronger. Email 3. Non-aligned observers. Goat appears ready to unionize. Conclusion, threat level, polite but real. I added a final line. This is the first time my notebook has felt like evidence instead of notes. On the way home for lunch, I passed Doris the Pothole. She had collected a new offering, half a plastic traffic cone wedged at an angle that made it look like she was trying to speak through a broken megaphone. What would you say if they let you? I asked her. I imagined the answer. If they can coordinate drones from space, they can fix a road. They just don't want to. Marzipan stepped carefully around the edge, then scraped one precise circle in the dust. Her tail flicked toward the facility in the distance. The anti-commons had noticed us, not enough to send agents, not yet, just enough to tug at our metadata to see what came loose. Back at my kitchen table, I spread out the photocopied map, the printed emails, and my notebook. The pattern was beginning to show itself. A local road problem, a humming concrete box, and a series of overly polite warnings. Addie, I said quietly, if this is a test, I'm fairly sure we've moved past the tutorial level. I closed my eyes for a moment, listening to the refrigerator, the distant rush of the river, and Marzipan's steady chewing. When I opened them, I knew what came next. If the digital paths were being monitored, I needed analog ones, human ones, places where people talked too loudly over hot drinks and forgot to lower their voices around reporters. Tomorrow I would go somewhere the anti-commons couldn't easily sanitize. The Midway Cafe had a green and yellow floor, a spinning ticket wheel, and coffee strong enough to make secrets tremble. If there was a leak in this global pothole, that's where I'd find the first drip. And if I got it wrong, I trusted Marzipan to scratch fact check me into the truth. You've been listening to Experiment 0 of the Peace Experiments. I hope you'll join us for the next episode. My books and peace projects can be found at aviskaufspec.com, including the Pedro the Water Dog Saves the Planet Best Friend Eco-Fiction series. For those who want to dive deeper into the peace themes we covered in 2025, I've created a 2025 recap ebook. It includes everything from Kitty Ocampo's satire debut to the deep history of the Great Disarmament. It's complimentary and available now at aviskaufspec.com/2025. Thank you again. Listen for the peace.